Hi, I'm Dan Lagani with Silver Solutions. Welcome to this edition of AgeWise, the show designed to help make you better prepared for all the things that you and your loved ones will have to navigate as you grow older. Today's topic is home care. We've talked about it before on AgeWise, but it's important enough that we're digging in a little further with today's guest, Steve Snell of Always Best Care in South Florida. We'll talk about things like what is home care and how do you know whether it's right for you or your mom or dad, to the other things that factor into which agency or company you bring into your home, and lastly, how COVID has affected the idea of anyone coming into our homes. Thanks so much for joining us today, Steve Snell. Welcome to the show.
Good morning, Dan. Happy to be here.
Steve, home care is such a big topic, and anybody that's growing older or has an older loved one has heard the phrase. But help us understand, in your own words, what it is and all of the different areas that get covered under that phrase.
Well, home care is a broad topic, of course. There are many different flavors of home care. There are your Medicare home care types of services, which the government pays for. The types of services that I focus on are the ones that have to do with maintaining independence in the home. For instance, if you need help with bathing or dressing or toileting, incontinence care, those sorts of things. Or it could be as little as something on a companion type of level. Companionship loneliness is a lot of the big problems that seniors face today. But we can help them get to their appointments. We can interact with them. We can do meal prep and those sorts of things as well. Those are all private pay types of things that, interestingly enough, are the things that you really need for long-term care.
So when a parent or the child of an older adult is considering whether home care is right, what are the things that they should be thinking about to ensure that they're the right candidate for the services that you provide?
From a client standpoint, if you're a person that is caring for a spouse or you're a grandchild, caring for a grandparent or a parent, you probably are at some point are going to get very tired. The relationship between you and that loved one is going to change from grandparent, parent, uncle, aunt to something more like caregiver. And out the window goes, all the nicety and I guess the relationship portion that you've had all these years with that individual, and it starts wearing on you, and it wears on both sides.
Steve, I want to get into terminology for a second. Your business is a home care agency. What's the difference between an agency and a registry?
A nurse registry actually is a company that refers independent contractors to your loved one. Moving up from the independent contractor side, there's a license in Florida called a home health agency. Now, going one step further from that non-medical home health agency, you have a home health agency that's nationally accredited. A nationally accredited home health agency also does skilled care. So they have registered nurses as well as certified nursing assistants, home health aides. I personally don't have separate people that are companions. I use nurses' aides for companion care because ultimately you're going to have hands on the client at some point. Somebody that's nationally accredited, home health agency, you can't get any better than that in the state of Florida.
So to summarize what was really great information, the difference between an agency and a registry comes down to, on some level, who the actual employer is. An agency employs the individuals, and if you go through a registry, you as the individual family employ that person in the home.
That's correct. That's correct. There's accountability differences. There's quality differences. There may be $1 or $2 an hour difference, but hey, mom's worth it.
In 2020, you can't help but have any conversation like this without thinking of COVID. How has COVID changed what you need to think about in order to deliver safe care to the families that you work with? What are you doing differently today than you may have been doing a year ago?
When we first start care with somebody, we will go in and we will educate them, if they're not already educated, on what we know about COVID. And let's face it, we're learning new things every day. Now, we as providers will use PPE, that's protective equipment, so that you can reduce the chances of any transmission of well, any virus or any kind of disease between client and caregiver.
Steve, I want to shift topics and ask the question, how do you measure success in what you do for your families? What are the things that you look for and that families that are working with a home care professional should be looking for as well?
Well, our number one goal with each individual family is safety. So first and foremost, we want to avoid falls and making sure that that client is safe. Whether or not it's somebody that has an Alzheimer's client that maybe has a tendency to wander, or it's somebody that has a bad gait and kind of shuffles around and maybe isn't using their walker all the time. I don't know about a lot of folks out there, but even my dad, who has Parkinson's, he has a walker, right? But not, every time you turn around, he's not using the walker. So, we can enforce and help mitigate a lot of problems, and encourage the use of the assistive devices, whether it's a cane, a walker, or wheelchair.
You started out in a very different profession. You were in the technology business, and somewhere along the way, you transitioned into just a different part of the country and into a very different profession. What was your journey, both sort of metaphorically as well as from a geography perspective?
Oh wow, it's. I'll try to be brief on the story, but I grew up in Washington State in the Pacific Northwest, and little town called Bellingham, Washington, which is up by the Canadian border. So I was working in the technology industry, and I had one of these afternoons, I went over to my grandparents' home in Seattle, and he sat me down and he wanted me to take care of his affairs for he and my grandmother, my nanny. And it was one of those moments where it's sort of I don't know, the emotion comes over you that, he would ask you to do something like that. And of course I say yes. And of course I will. And at that point you stand up, you step up, somebody always has to, and you take on the responsibility, even though you don't know what you don't know. So at that point, my grandparents I was taking care of them up in Seattle, getting them to appointments. My grandfather had cancer. He had lymphoma. There was cancer treatments that were going on, doctor's appointments, hospital visits, when his chemo would get out of whack and so forth. And so I had to bring in-home care in. Towards the end, we had hospice come in. Then once that happens, you've got to sell the house, like the business that you're in right now. I didn't know of Silver Solutions back then. Boy, wouldn't it have been nice to help pare down the house and help distribute the belongings to different family members and sort of be a focal point to downsize the house and help get it sold. Subsequently, I came down to Florida. I fell in love with Florida. My grandmother came down with me, lived with me for a while, and it's tough when you have a 3-year-old son, and you've got your grandmother as well, my nanny. I wouldn't trade it for the world. So after my grandparents were both gone, I was looking around to starting a new business, and that's how I came into home care. So I thought that maybe I could help somebody avoid some of the pitfalls. I can share some of my experiences And what I did, not everything I did was right, or what I recommend is right, but I can, give people some real basis to make decisions on their own. And that's what I sought out to do, is to have a company with employees that I controlled, that I could say to that client that I'm responsible for everything that happens here. You call the office if you have any issue, and I'll take care of it. And that's how we structured the business.
Steve Snell of Always Best Care in South Florida, thanks so much for joining us today and sharing your wisdom so that we can help make others smarter and better prepared for all the decisions that come as you grow older. I'm Dan Lagani with AgeWise. If you like this episode, please share it with a friend. And if you'd like to look at past episodes, visit our website, silversolutions.com, and click on the video tab. For all of us here at Silver Solutions, who try our best every day to help make the process of growing older safer and less stressful, thanks so much for joining us. Stay safe and be wise.